fuck knows who's watching this. I'll try and moderate my language. I don't know why. Anyway, I'm with Mr. Ian Horridge. I don't know how to describe it. Intellectual, esoteric voyager, and all round decent fella. And it's just me. And like I said, I don't know who's watching this, but it doesn't. There's 3 people watching this. I don't know why. Shadow Watchers, good evening. But on this channel, we're going to try and deviate from the usual Jeremy Kyle type channel that I did, and try and gently ease our way into peering beyond the realms of life. And I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, Ian, to be honest with you. But
it sounded good. It sounded good.
Yeah. Just we want a different channel, really. And where we can just talk about deeper things in life than, you know, what's presented to you through the media and various other sources, you know. So, Mr. Horridge, well, we've got Nicole in the room, Daz Williams, good evening. This was meant to be the Chequered Truth channel, but we'll have to sort that. We're starting a new channel called the Chequered Truth. It's out there somewhere. That sounds like the X-Files. I realise that, but
the truth is out there. Well, the Chequered Truth is out there, rather.
Yeah, let's right. I'm going to try and share this channel. So, how's your week been, Ian? Have you been not too bad?
It's not bad. I'm lucky to still be alive, not masking and having loads of shots. You know, so I'm every day I'm above ground, according to the media. Is a point, you know.
This is it. I mean, when you put television on, I went around my friend's Chris D's house, and he watches the news, and it was food shortages, petrol shortages, prices are going up, universal credits being cut, jabs, COVID, death, and that's all it is, isn't it? It's just it's just a low vibration station. And you know, an interesting thing we could talk about is perhaps now mental health is such a buzzword these days,
right?
And it's hijacked by so many fucking narcissists who start channels, you know, on the back of mental health. But obviously, this becomes a vehicle for them to elate themselves into some kind of demigod, you know what I mean? And all people will flock around some fucking idiot who's just raped Google and YouTube for feel good advice. It would be interesting to there's various ways where people can change their outlook on the reality. One being the choice of language that how you communicate with yourself. I suppose how you eat, how you think,
right?
What you put into yourself in many different forms. In the sense of what you watch, what you listen to, you know, and also like I just said, how you communicate to yourself. Have you anything you want to elucidate on that, Ian?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, think about from the time we're born, we're told who we are, what religion we are, what, you know, Sky Daddy we believe in, and everything else. And we're constantly told every step of the way through school and everything else, indoctrinated into how powerless we actually are. You need a doctor for your health. You need a priest if you want to talk to your God, or a rabbi or whatever. There's always seemed to be these stepping stones, and there's always money involved, funnily enough, or there's always some process, you know. So with that, we get this negative image of ourselves, don't we? We you know, we're told we're just this random beast knocking around a load of rocks, clacking around. Everything was just random. Nothing happened to nothing. All of a sudden, we're walking around eating burritos and, you know, drinking fizzy drinks, and, you know, something obviously happened. And when you look at how everything replicates in a scale of nature with sequences and stuff that, you know, from seashells to leaves and everything else, there's a very intellectual level of math involved with that. So when we're constantly belittled, and it's in a nice way. It's very subtle. It's not like somebody's screaming at you, "You're a piece of shit." It's, well, they might do, but that's abuse in it. But for the teacher's point of view, or whatever else, we're gently introduced to this idea that we're really not that special. And so we carry that into our adult lives. Now, there's a saying that if you give somebody the boy for 7 years, they'll show you the man they become at 8. Because in this first 7 years, you're acting solely on what you have basically observed, and it absorbs into your subconscious, which helps, co-create your reality out. So if you program somebody a certain way, it can become very predictable how they'll be in adult life. And I think that's kind of where we're at, isn't it? I mean, the jobs these days, they don't really want people thinking for themselves. They want them obedient, showing up on time, punching the clock, doing what they're told. And so we take that, and the worst thing we do is we project that on ourselves. We make a mistake at work. I mean, who's your worst critic? It's always yourself, isn't it? So when we're talking shit to ourselves about, oh, you idiot, you screwed that up. I mean, we take that on, and our mind, our subconscious mind, listens to that and then helps spit it out into our future reality, and we end up making our own bullshit down the road.
I heard this. I saw it on. Sorry, it's not COVID, everybody. So just wipe your screens down with Dettol. Bear with me. I saw this really good quote on Instagram. It was meant to be a Japanese proverb. I don't know if it is or not. Do not speak badly of the warrior within, because he hears those words and is lessened by them. It's a kind of what we're saying, but how you communicate with yourself. And I'm not sure it was you what said it. Who was it who said it? And we were talking about water being polluted, and somebody said, "Do you know where the most polluted water is in the world?" I said, "It's in the human body." Talk about vibrations, like that Japanese scientist did an experiment with water.
Right.
He wrote different words on the bottle of love and hate, and then they analysed the water under microscopes, and the water with love on it, written on the bottle, was really kind of symmetrical and looked harmonious under a microscope. And the one that said hate on it was obviously like out of sorts and misaligned, and for want of a better word.
It was messed up, wasn't it?
Yeah. That's where we're kind of at, and the world is quite polluted, toxic, vibrationally. I think it's in one of the worst kind of states it's been for a while, isn't it? With people, I've just noticed a change in people. People have always been kind of assholes with each other, but I don't know, after this COVID and things like that, I've just noticed there's a lot more bad vibes floating about, unless it's just me. And there seems to be a lot more degenerates about as well, unless it's that fucking game like They Live, you know what I mean, that kind of thing. But
well, it's the typical thing that always happens, where a problem is not necessarily, it might not even be a problem. I mean, if you look at 2019, I'm using US statistics because I was there at the time, but in 2019 there was something around 30 million flu cases reported, right? And then in 2020 it was 1,800. So I mean, what happened there? Is it just that everyone did such a good job staying in their homes, being scared, or is it really everything under the sun that comes with a sniffle was rebranded? I mean, the only thing it doesn't have on the fucking list of symptoms is like erectile dysfunction and bad credit, right? Everything else is under there. You sneeze, you've got it. So it's one of these points where they create an illusion of a problem, and then they immediately have the fix. They tell us that they're still researching whether cannabis is safe, and it's been around for tens of thousands of years, but in 6 months we can determine that Bill Gates and Dr. Fauci know for fact that this is going to be great because they came up with it. And all of a sudden it's rushed out, and it's another point in division, whether you're Protestant or Catholic, gay or straight, black or white, whatever. Now you're vaccinated or you're not vaccinated. It's one of these things where they drop us down into ever smaller blocks, so we just fight amongst ourselves, and then they do whatever the hell they want to do, essentially.
David Icke used to call it problem reaction solution, but it was apparently he's lifted it. It was the Hegelian dialectic. So he kind of lifted it from Hegel, who kind of came up with this concept of they create a problem and we all react to it, and then they say, "Don't worry, we'll sort this problem for you." And that's how they've got away with so much, and it's been one of the main kind of tools in their arsenal.
And it normally costs you a little bit of money and a little bit of freedom, and that's always David Icke calls us another nice saying called the totalitarian tiptoe, where they just take tiny little inchworm steps towards, totalitarian environments. And Hitler said it in a sense that you don't just change everything at once. You change 1,000 small laws, and by the time people have realized what's happened, it's too late. There's nothing left. I mean, look at really if that was to happen in Britain, we're defenseless, aren't we? There's no firearms anymore. You can't even carry a knife without a fishing rod. So really we're sitting ducks at this point. And in America, it's the other way. So I mean, everyone's armed to the teeth because it was Masons that created the Constitution and knew this was coming. And I know that's a lot of conspiracy theories. They always like to point the finger at Masons, but a lot of the time they're doing things that are decent, and that was one of them. The problem with America is there's so much fluoride in the water. They just don't see it as a threat a lot of the time. I mean, it's starting to turn around, I think, a little bit. If anyone's paying attention to the latest election that just went through, obviously it's nonsensical. We got a gibber an idiot now that can't even string a sentence, and that's normal politics. Politics as usual. Now we're already at war again. Petrol's up $1 a gallon. It's back to business as usual. Whereas the reason why everyone hated Trump was because that he was trying to dismantle that a little bit, and so the media turned on the full throes of the thought control and got people against him. And really, he was actually doing a lot of decent things. But anyway, I sidetracked them. What was the original? The Hegelian dialogue, right?
Sorry, I appear to have attracted COVID during the show, which is kind of interesting. It's just a cough, but that would my point. Me how they shape things. We spoke about it last night, and it kind of goes back to the initial point of my acting teacher told me something very interesting, and I think I shared it with you when we had a private chat. But during his time in power, Hitler banned the words "I am" being used together, which you say to most people, words are magical, and they just think you're a fucking prick, basically. But people don't understand the power of words. Words are basically vibration and energy. You could just correct me if I'm wrong, Ian. And when you say to somebody, "I hate you," blah blah blah, it's actually would I be wrong in saying that's a form of black magic?
Not really. I mean, the person saying it may not realize it, but they're still vibrating that sound into the matrix essentially. So you are harming them, and it might not be an immediate thing, or it might not be even a big thing. Maybe they get up tomorrow and stub the toe, and it was a result of you shooting something out there. There's nothing at all by coincidence whatsoever in life. Not even a blade of grass moves without permission. Everything is orchestrated. Yeah, everything is controlled to the nth degree, and what we've got is a bunch of basically middlemen, demiurge or whatever, that like to get in the middle and try to control things and sway it for them. So, when you go back to Hitler and the vibration of I am is one of the most powerful things you can say I'm something negative, or you can say I'm a decent dad, or I can hold a job, or there's positive things you can affirm yourself.
I am the greatest, Muhammad Ali, blah blah blah.
Exactly. I mean, he did pretty well, didn't he? So you defeat yourself in your own mind. Really, there's nothing else that can defeat anybody. Hitler went so far to control that vibration that he changed the frequency of the A note in music from 432 hertz to 440. and instead of it being a harmonious symphony, it became a little bit pitched to where it made people anxious.
It was.
Yeah.
Apparently, it was Joseph Goebbels proposed it, and the Rockefeller Institute, I think the Rockefeller Naval Institute, did research into I think the Earth's frequency, human cavity resonance. I think it's around 432 hertz.
Mm.
Ancient musical instruments, what have been found, were tuned to 432 hertz. Up until 1939, classic concert pitch was 432 hertz. Then it changed to 440, which is more disharmonious, which I'm not sure is a real word, but it makes people more antisocial, work harder, and more aggressive. And there's so much you could go with music. I mean, we could be out. We'll just find our feet with this. What we're doing. So it's going to be all over the place.
What I like to do with it is, I mean, obviously anyone can get on here and listen to us talking about something, but this isn't, for anyone that's listening, I don't know how many people are even in the thing, but
13,
this is
13 people, Ian. So that's a symbol.
Okay. Yeah. So this isn't us saying, you're thinking wrong or how to think. This is us just laying some things out that we noticed, and feel free to look for yourself. But the thing I like to do is try to point people to the proof. So if you want to see how sound reacts with matter, and obviously at a scientific level, we know that matter is energy. Look up the term cymatics. It's the effect of sound on matter, and basically you can see how different notes form geometric shapes and patterns and forms in things like water and sand and everything else. And when you consider that we're 65-70% water, it has an effect on us as well. So those sounds that go through, and the radio waves and the things we don't see, I mean, we only see a sliver of our reality, really, don't we? All those things affect us on a molecular level, to where we actually pick up that vibration and kind of act on it. So if you're feeling, you're in traffic or anything else and you're feeling panicked, you don't know where it came from, it probably wasn't you. It was probably some nonsense that came through the radio or a 5G tower or something else,
Yeah. It's there's also an interesting conspiracy theory. I don't. You probably might have heard of it. I'm not sure. I'll just remind you if not. Apparently, in the 80s, the bosses of all the new private prisons and the record company executives got together and decided to push in an attempt to push gangster rap as a way of filling prisons, because the music really does glamorize crime. And you see these rappers who've never really been criminals, half of them. A lot of them are middle class.
Yeah.
Dr. Dre was middle class, and a lot of NWA were middle class. And they're purporting that they've lived this lifestyle of selling drugs and bitches and dogs and fucking, like fancy cars, and that they put the train and lifestyle, and where a lot of kids on council estates and in the projects in America will look to and say, yeah, let's sell drugs. You know what I mean? Let's rob stores or shops, and you know what I mean. And it fills prisons, and it once again, musical, the vibration, the frequency. It's just, but that's part of social engineering as well. Music has been used for social engineering.
It is. Yeah, definitely. And sorry, go ahead.
People don't realize Hollywood. And obviously, the name is named Hollywood is a wand. Am I right in thinking that?
Yes, the wood that was used for wands, right?
The Druids would the wands Druids used in rituals were made out of holly, so the name Hollywood, and it's a big mass social engineering project that is has strong CIA links. Am I right in thinking that, Ian?
Yeah, definitely. And going back to the music thing real quick, it was Ronald Reagan in term, I think, at the time when they came out with the start of gangster rap, and that combined with crack cocaine and CIA running drugs, they poisoned basically the black communities in America were. I mean, it wasn't. It was so stealthy how they did it, but it was an attack definitely on the African Americans. I mean, and just to look at, just even to go back to shots, if a lot of people say, why don't you trust? I mean, trust the science first off. I mean, it sounds ridiculous. If you can't question it, it's not science. That's dogma. And then so far as what they've done in the past, I mean, just look up the Tuskegee experiment where they infected black males with syphilis and then didn't treat it.
It was vile.
Yeah, they said it was,
sorry, it was vile.
Yeah, no worries.
The two come in and says, we're going to look after you. And they just basically watched them die of syphilis, didn't they?
Yeah, that was it. They said it was a free healthcare project and basically killed them. And then you got things like, this science is settled. Well, was it settled when we had thalidomide or when the doctors were telling you what cigarettes were best for your kids? It really doesn't go any further. What they'd like to do is they come up with a new idea and they run as far as they can with it and hurt as many people as possible until they finally admit, oh shit, we were wrong. And then they bring out some new bullshit, right? And this is the new bullshit right now. 2020 was the new thing. It's very symbolic, really, because 2020 obviously is clear vision, isn't it? It's perfect sight.
Okay.
And you get a big hoax like this, and I think there's so many people questioning it now that it's just like, well, shit, maybe they were right all along. I mean, because about 5 years ago, I was telling people, look, that they'll have you scared of a common cold if you let them. And this wasn't me just trying to tell the future; it's just some random statement I said. But here we are, and then we started saying, well, yeah, it starts with masks, and then it'll be mandatory vaccinations.
Yeah.
Here we are. I mean, and people still laugh like we fucking told you this was coming.
Do you know what?
This is not a fortune teller,
Are we not part of the problem in the sense of collective manifestation?
We might be, and so that's tricky in a way, because if you make people think about it, yeah, you can co-create that issue. But what we have to do, what's more important than teaching people new things at this point, is people unlearning what they thought was fact. And that way they can unplug themselves. Yeah. They can do a little digging. And so it's not for us to tell them what to think or what to focus on. It's basically to point them in the direction and say, hey, you might want to look at this. There's some bullshit over here. And then they'll look at it and think, oh, crap, that's right. And then all of a sudden they disassociate with it. And it's like pulling little plugs out of a circuit. And so the less people that are fed into this thing, the less power it's going to get. And you'll eventually hopefully see it run out of steam.
Yeah. What disappointed me was on the other channel was how many people on it were vaccinated. And I thought they'd always followed a journey with me. But having said that, that's me having a polarized viewpoint. I think it's very hard to remain impartial, because everything's geared up to have you on one side of the fence or the other.
Right. I mean, for me and my family and the things that I've researched over the last 5-6 years and people that I know, including doctors, including people that are in intelligence and things like that. I don't trust the people involved with it. It's a hell of a marketing campaign. And for that reason, I'm going to sit back and observe. The problem is a lot of people haven't looked at that. They've been watching Coronation Street or whatever, and that's not a bad thing. That just happened. It wasn't like these people chose to do that. They just didn't know any different. So I think what we need to look at is the freedom of choice. If the vaccine works and you have it, then you're good. You don't need to worry about people that don't have it, right? We can still get along. I can be non-vaxxed. I can have my vitamin C and my colloidal silver and my weird hippie tinctures or whatever, and you have the science and the vaccine and everything, and we could still coexist. What they're doing is they're telling people that somehow, if you've had the protection, we're still a threat because we're not vaccinated. Well, if I say to somebody else, well, you need to take your vitamins because I'm going to get sick if you've got low vitamin D3 deficiency, it doesn't make any sense. It's an obvious marketing ploy to keep us fighting. The racism thing's running out of steam. We're all realizing that we have more in common than we have differences, and they need a new fear factor between the people.
Yeah, I can't. Sorry, the COVID. I'll probably be an iron lung
Well,
about.
look at it this way: you could have your jab and your 2 boosters, and still have something really similar. So don't worry about it.
I've got some colloidal silver. I'm going to have a spray of it. Actually, I think it's colloidal gold actually, and a mixture of stuff.
Right. Okay. There you go.
That is
Knock
really.
it out. Is it minted?
Yeah, but it's a strange time to be alive, and sometimes you have to divorce yourself from all the hoo-ha, the vaccines, and what's going on, because the best advice I had, I was so into conspiracy theories at one point. Now I was sat there worried about AI and transhumanism and all kind. Because when you awaken, to use that term, it's kind of like the house you've been living in falls in on you, and it's like, what the fuck? And
it's shocking, isn't it?
I remember when I walked as a kid, I used to, it was weird. When I was a kid, I was really into the occult, and I was even reading about the Golden Dawn as a kid, and
right.
And it just kind of, you forget about it in adult life. And it was Paul Maiden put a post on Facebook saying the chemtrails are really bad today in Wigan, and I says, what's chemtrails? And then it's like, what? And then from A to B, and then before you know it, the Federal Reserve, and it's like, fuck, and it's like, and everything falls away, doesn't it? And it's like a Buster Keaton silent film where he's in his house, and then fucking everything just falls out, and then part of it just falls over him, kind of thing. And
yeah, for me it was I went to bed one night, and I don't know, it was weird. I had some just questions on my mind, I suppose, and I woke up with a couple of answers, and then it was Nazis and fluoride. That's where it started for me. So I started googling and like, what the hell did Nazis have to do with fluoride? And then of course they were putting it in the prison camps in the water to keep, that's why 10 guards could keep control of 20,000 people, because they were all so mentally dwindled down from the fluoride. And then you look at who was the first toothpaste company to do it, and it was Crest, right? And Crest it meant that it was a crest on the fucking hat. That was the star of it, and it came from.
Is that what the name Crest meant?
I think so. Yeah, it was a Maltese cross, wasn't it, on the symbol and the eagle or something originally, and it came from a company called IG Farben, which became other companies. One of them was Bayer. In America, the slogan is, "It's the company you can trust." Well, Bayer's. It's not a company you can trust at all. It stems from just last decade or last century, there were Nazis, so it didn't really fall anywhere. And then those guys came in from Operation Paperclip over from Germany to America, and they actually went in as the heads of these institutions. And then in 1947, fluoride went in the American water. So there's definitely a trace there. And so fluoride, it has it has a lot of functions, but two main functions is it makes you apathetic, so you don't really question things at all. And then it also calcifies your pineal gland, which kind of slows down your connection to source. People think that everything happens in our brain. There's no proof whatsoever that consciousness occurs in the human head whatsoever. This is just a receiver. So that's why somebody can bang their head and wake up speaking German and playing a piano. They've just crossed the signal. They damage the receiver. Everything we're told is in a linear format, like, things you do today cause and effect tomorrow, but it's really not that way. Time is just an omnipresent thing. Everything's here and now, and we're just separating perceptions by frequencies like a radio channel. So while it seems linear to us and we're kind of taking the steps through life, everything is kind of here and now. So if you bang your head, you might scramble with 1,000 different lives that you've lived, and all of a sudden have all these traits that stream into your reality in this world. Nothing is at all what they told us from. I mean, it is a really simple example of how backward things are. If you ask somebody what the color of grass is, they're going to always say green, right? But the only reason it's green is because that's the light it reflects, because chlorophyll can't absorb that light to make a function, so it rejects it. So really, if we didn't see everything in negative perceptions, if we didn't see what was rejected, if we saw it for what it is, it would probably be like a burnt orange color. If we saw what was accepted rather than rejected, that's how it would be. So we actually are seeing the reflections of the real world, not the actual real world itself. So everything we see is 180 degree from the truth as it is. So every truth even is a half truth at this point.
And we create our reality. 100%.
Yeah, and if you don't know where you are, how do you know where you're going? So they keep us confused, and then we start worrying about stupid shit, and all of a sudden we get a lot of stupid shit, right? You're running late for work. Guess what? You hit every fucking light because you're thinking, oh shit, I'm going to be late, and you're speaking that. All of a sudden, boom, you're behind a bus. Next thing, you get a red light. It happens that way. It's that simple.
It blows your fucking mind, really.
It does, yeah. I mean, imagine if we were told from day one that we were the gods we were told we were looking for. It's that literal. And for people that are questioning this, obviously there's some lunatic here drinking a wine or whatever with a dodgy accent. If you go on the CIA reading room, CIA.gov, and look up gateway process, the file, you can read it. It was declassified 18 years ago. It will tell you exactly how the reality runs, and it's all based on your own mind. And they know every little bit of it.
Like I said, I'd love to speak in depth with you about the CIA gateway file. That changed your life to a certain degree, didn't it?
It did. It said a lot of things that I was suspecting because I'd read a lot of great books up until that point. The Physics of God by a guy called Joseph Selby was one of the things that really got me interested in. What we're told is spirituality really is borderline with quantum physics. So the more you look for God, the more you'll find science, and the more you look to science, the more you'll find signs of a really high intelligence. So the two aren't exclusive. You can have science and God, and maybe he's just a really good scientist. But there was one case in this book that shows how powerful our perception. Well, I'll go through two really quick. The first one was a guy. What's that?
I said, take your time.
Okay, so the first one was a guy who was schizophrenic. Okay, and he's a great example because when you're schizophrenic, you really believe that you're somebody else, right? That's the whole premise of the disorder. So he was the most extreme case, and he went through 23 transformations of personality in 1 hour. This particular guy believed it so strong that he had physical manifestation changes on his body. So, like, one of his personalities had a scar on his head. The scar disappeared. He would grow freckles, thinking he was a little girl. He believed he was a bodybuilder, and they weighed him, and he was like 18 pounds heavier than he was before. It changed his physicality because he believed it so strong, and it was within minutes. The next case was hypnosis, which is also another really powerful mind trick. And the case was they had the family in the room, and this has been repeated. This isn't just like a one-off thing. This is a tried and tested result. So the gentleman's in the chair, and they convince him that his daughter isn't in the room, right? So they wake him up. His daughter's on the couch. Do you see your daughter? He says, no, I don't see her anywhere. She must have left the room. They put him back under. They take the girl and stand her right in front of the dad. Wake him back up. He said, do you see your daughter in the room yet? And he says, no, I still don't see her. She must be at the bathroom or whatever. And they put him back under, right? And he says, now what I'm going to show you next not only will challenge what you think to be real, but if you really understand what's going on, it will change your perception of reality. So they woke him back up. The daughter's still in front of him. He said, do you see your daughter? He says, no. Okay. And he says, do me a favor. He said, my eyes aren't as good as they used to be. He said, can you read the time on my watch? And he puts his wrist against the girl's back. So if you picture it, the guy's in the chair like I am. The girl stood in front of him. The doctor's behind the girl with his watch against her back. The guy leans forward in the chair, looked through the girl, and read the watch. And he read the inscription on the watch too. Okay. In his reality, she wasn't reflected there because he was made to believe she wasn't there. So he had no concept she was there whatsoever. When he said, your daughter's back in the room, and clicked his fingers, he jumped back because he was surprised that she was so close to him the whole time. But since he didn't believe she was there, she wasn't in his reality.
Do you use visualization and this manifestation
Sure.
in your life?
Yeah, I mean, I'm lazy like everyone else, so I mean, I do forget about it, and I do go about day-to-day life mostly as a normal person. You know, I don't do a meditation every time I leave the house or anything, but I do try to keep my hands on the wheel, as it were. I don't let my subconscious just run the script, autopilot. You know, because that normally leads to shit that wasn't even yours in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, we need we need to be really vigilant. It's easier said than done. We need to be really vigilant about what we think and what we say. Really, you know what I mean? But people this isn't stuff you taught, is it? You just taught in school like to work in a factory, or if you are
Right.
when you go to university, it's just a testing compliance, really.
Yeah,
you know I mean?
that's it.
You've ticked all the boxes. You've been a good boy, a girl. The hat and gown, it represents Saturn. Am I right in thinking that when you go to the university, you're given your martyr hat and your black gown? Does that represent the knowledge of Saturn, or is it like kind of a respect to Saturn, the planet?
It is in respect to Saturn. Anything to do with cubism or squares. If you look at, so I have to stem back a little bit into where this came from. If you look at the North Pole of Saturn, it's a perfect hexagon, which is very unusual in the cloud formations, obviously to do with magnetics or something. So if you look at our main religions, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, we have, you know, the Jews wear the tefillin on the head, don't they? That little black square they place above the third eye. In Mecca, they have the big.
I didn't know that. Did they wear like a black square on the forehead?
Yeah, a certain Judaic order wears that. Yeah.
Do you know
and
what?
then
Can I just ask you? Is it true that the skull cap Jews were represents psilocybin, the mushroom? Or have a fucking is that bollocks?
that I'm not sure of.
Yeah.
That I'm not. I'm going to look that up.
Sorry, but back to the black cube. It's very interesting.
So in Mecca, they've got the huge black cube, right? They've got Mecca, and they walk around it in circles like Saturn's rings. So that's to Saturn. And then in Christianity, we have the cross. Well, if you have a perfectly even cross, if you fold it up, it's the net of a cube, right? So it's the 6 squares that fold into a cube. So it's all alluding to, you know, a hexagon is basically a 2D representation of a cube. So the Saturn worshipping with the cap and gown, what they're saying is, we've taught you everything that we want you to know, and they put the cap on it, the cap in your knowledge. You don't need to look at anything else. You've got a doctorate. You've been indoctrinated. You don't need to go any further with your research.
Is that what it symbolizes? Yeah.
Yeah, right. Basically, yeah.
Fascinating.
But everything to do with Saturn is to do with an energy feedback loop. And if you look at, it's another David Icke thing, actually, the Saturn moon matrix is to do with recycling souls and reincarnation and stuff like that. And the more you get to feed into it energy wise, whether you celebrate a cap and gown or you celebrate Christianity or one of the major religions, you're actually putting your good thoughts and your energy into sustaining that system, which is actually keeping us captive.
David Icke reckons that Saturn makes some weird sounds, doesn't it? Apparently, have you listened on YouTube? The sound
it does. The sound pretty grim, yeah.
And his theory is that Saturn is the hard drive that's projected through the. I remember once telling a counsellor this when my head had gone, and he just fucking laughed at me. And you know that the Saturn is the hard drive, and it's all projected through the moon, and our reality is kind of like projected onto us from Saturn.
But it's like subverted. Yeah.
A lot of the elites worship Saturn, don't they?
Well, yeah, it was known as the Black Sun, wasn't it? And there was an order of the Black Suns as well.
Was that
if you notice,
was that a Nazi? Was that something to do with Nazi? That was it a Nazi?
They were into it. It didn't start with them, but they were into it. And if you remember, there was I can't remember what the instance was. There was a riot in America probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and I don't know if it was to do with a BLM thing or something like that, but there was people in the crowd carrying like banners with a black sun on it. Like if you're just out causing a riot, you're not fucking doing a druid symbol. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. So they're telling you right there that this is all orchestrated. This isn't, this isn't like just naturally happen where somebody lost their mind and shot somebody or whatever. These are all, Manchurian candidates basically. And they have to let you know they're doing it because that way it lets them avoid some of the karma that comes if they just didn't tell you the truth at all.
Is that why they do that? They let people know what's happening. Is that the rules of the game?
They do, but there's no rules in how they tell you. So you find it in your movies, you find it in comic books, the places you wouldn't expect. The B movies, they don't put it on the news. The news is for show. The news is what we think is real.
These fucking Avengers films, my mate Stu had one on tonight, and there's one where there's all these stones that they fucking have collect or something, and these stones make them powerful, and it's all comes from a cult, doesn't it? A cult symbolism and stuff. All this,
absolutely.
It's fascinating.
Absolutely. And it's funny because at the end, the guy that had the stones, he didn't think he was being bad. He thought he was bringing balance. Nobody ever wants to think they're the bad guy. That's the trick.
Yeah.
Hitler wouldn't have done what he did if he thought he was the bad guy. He thought he had a real cause, and that's how they get you. When you get religions, they tell you like you've got 100% of the answers and I've got 100% of the answers, and there's no negotiation in between at all. So it doesn't lead to some great enlightenment where we're searching for the same God or deity or whatever. It just leads to conflict because we're arguing over who's got the best book at that point.
Well, I thought as well something that struck out to me. Thanos wanted to wipe half of the world's population. I thought, what the fuck is he? Bill Gates? You know what I mean? Thanos.
He's a bit short. He's a bit short on Bill Gates. Bill Gates wants to do about 93%. So Thanos is easy going here.
Thanos could be like the new spokesperson for the WHO. You know what I mean? But yeah, and it's all in films. It's just in front of your eyes. I mean, somebody told, I think it's David Icke said back in the day, one of the moons of Saturn was the Death Star, but they didn't know that at the time. It wasn't common knowledge at the time, but one of the moons of Saturn looks like the Death Star, where it had like a circular kind of
dimple in it. And so the interesting thing about Star Wars is one of those great movies where they just load all this shit up in there. Like the Jedi and the Sith come from Egyptology. That was a thing. There was a city called Anak back in the ancient days in Mesopotamia and all that, and they were really, really tall. And so they were so tall, they were like giants almost, but they were so tall they were called Skywalkers, and they were called Anakim because they were from Anak. So, and all he did was change the M to an N. You got Anakin Skywalker from Anakim Skywalker. So that's in there. And then what else did it say? That's no moon. That's a space station, right? That's in there too. So.
And also, didn't Darth Vader represent Saturn? The black color.
Yeah. The Darth, or this is an interesting one. The term Darth comes from the Kabbalah Tree of Life, and Darth is actually, it's not D-A-R-T-H. It's actually D-A and then a dash and then another A, but it's a hidden what they call Sephiroth in the Tree of Life. We basically incarnate through spheres. There's a source at the top, and you kind of ping pong down from like coincidence and severity and mercy and everything else. While Darth is the hidden knowledge behind some of the higher trees. So it's actually talking about you have to find that hidden knowledge to get beyond, which is occult knowledge, and that's where Darth Vader came from. That's why he's in black.
Wow. And also, were the Jedi were a magical order in the ancient Egypt. Am I right in thinking that?
Yeah, and so were the Sith.
Fucking hell.
and look at the colors of the Sith, they're black and red, right? Which is just like the Vatican. And the Vatican means divine and serpent. So I mean that's off as well. There's loads of shit.
So the Vatican means what? Sorry.
Divine and serpent.
Fucking hell. Well, yeah. And
if you look at, that's why we have a basilisk. If it's all in the words, St. Peter's Basilisk, Basiliska, it's all from snake worship. If you look at the main church or whatever you want to call it in Rome, it's actually shaped like the head of a python.
The inside, the interior. I've seen that picture. The interior, the interior of the church, and there's all this like twisted, dark fucking sculpture in a wooden sculpture at the back where
it's supposed to be the ascension of Jesus or Jesus escaping hell. To me, it looks quite demonic. But if you hold a mirror image in the middle, it's another serpent. It reflects on itself as a serpent. So it's all hidden knowledge.
It's kind of mind blowing. But Saturn and a lot of corporate logos, kind of
right.
What I'm looking.
Yeah, they want the
pay homage to Saturn. The Nike tick is the ring of Saturn, isn't it?
Yeah, Nike, Pepsi. There's quite a lot, but
the Mercedes logo is a corner of a cube. Am I right in thinking that?
Yeah, there's a ton of them. If you look at Infinity, sometimes that gets related to Masonic symbols. Mazda was named after a Sumerian text, Ahura Mazda. The wings are the same as it was basically an alien Anunnaki theory. They pay homage to all this stuff, and that's what they do is they take the glory and they give it to whatever it is they worship, and that guarantees them some level of success. Like if you look at McDonald's and turn the logo on its side, it's a 13, and it's going back to Witch's Coven and all that kind of stuff. So they're definitely paying a price for that level of success, and that's why you normally get. I mean, look, it was the most recent. I guess Britney Spears went wacky, didn't she? She, Lady Gaga's gone wacky. They all of it. When you sell, it's the very literal sense, almost of selling your soul. You're trading everything that you're worth as a person for a level of success, and it eventually normally destroys you. Because the power corrupts, and that's just how it works.
Yeah, I mean, people. I mean, you put me onto a channel by a bloke called Frater X, a magician. The channel's called Mind Magic with a K.
It's a great channel,
and it is. I was engrossed. I've watched about 30 of his videos, and he was just talking about. A lot of people who get into dark arts and black magic, it's for money, sex, and power.
Right.
And he says when they attain them things, they're very seldom happy. Because one of the things in life is purpose. Now, at this juncture in my life, I as I said to you, I find myself having not much purpose in my life. And purpose is a big thing. And you can have money and you can have everything, but if you've not got purpose, it doesn't mean anything. You could be sat in a mansion with millions of pounds in bank, but you're doing fuck all day. You would soon tire of that. And a lot of people think like, "Oh, that's bullshit." But if you was doing nothing, just bumming around, you'd be no better than being on the dole. You know what I mean? Obviously, you'd have your first 6 months where you go mad and you buy cars and. You know what I mean? The women or whatever, or farm foods, find the best clothes, and then you'd reach this point where, well, you've satiated all your kind of desires to a point.
Well, it's all utterly meaningless at the end of the day. Money is just a tool to provide comfort and provide for the ones that you care about. Really, I mean, that's the basis of it. But yeah, if you're miserable and rich or miserable and poor, you're still miserable. It's just everything's just scalar, so it repeats every. We're in octaves here, so it's just up the ladder, still fucking miserable.
And an interesting thing you put me onto was tithing. Do you know the history of tithing? Does it go back a long time, Ian?
Oh yeah, it was from Hebrew knowledge, from what I understand, and it said biblically, I can do more with 90% than you can do with 100% when you give 10% to the church, and it was God's way of ensuring that you would get back more than what you gave in. What it is really it's just all about energy flow. So when you give that 10% away, you're making room for more abundance in your life because you've provided it to somebody else. They wish you well in return, and you've opened a little hole in your life to accept that abundance, and so it comes back, and then you have to give a bit more away, and it goes up and up. That's why we have these rich psychopaths with seemingly endless charities, because they can't give enough away to keep this chain going.
It's not that. It's not that. Sorry, Ian. It's not that they care about children in wheelchairs or starving children. It's the fact that they understand the mechanics of it.
Right, that's it. It's all to them. It's all just a process. It's just energy in and energy out. I mean, if you dam up a river, eventually you're going to stop the flow of it, and you'll kill the river. So that's the premise of it. If you keep that energy flowing, it will come back to you on in greater and greater abundance. Really, one of the main purposes in life, one of the things that not a lot of people do, and I don't really do it either, but trying to make other people happy seems to be, it's the one thing you can give away and get it back. You know what I mean? That's like, if you've got kids or whatever, that gives you a purpose, because you have to, obviously you're on the hook for their welfare, and you want to be, because you're the parent, but at the same time it gives you a driving sense of something bigger than yourself, whether that's a cause or a charity or an organization. But it's definitely the feeling of contributing something, I think, is a huge part of purpose.
It's very fascinating, isn't it? Once again, goes back to energy, and what you put out, you get back. And it seems to be a recurring theme through everything.
We're essentially a product of our environment. It's when you look at like the sun and the moon, the sun is considered positive and male, and the moon is considered negative and female. I'm not talking about negativity in a sense of bad or good. It's just energy flow, electric. So when the sun gives out the energy, there's a reason why he was the son of God, right? Or the solar system, it takes souls to run that system. We're those souls, we're that energy supply. Excuse me, I've got COVID now, man. I got you through camera.
Sorry, mate. I'm sorry, I've given you actually energetic COVID. You've got bad. It's the latest. Fuck the Delta variant.
It's the Microsoft variant. Yeah.
This vibrational COVID is the worst. I'm sorry to everybody who's actually watching this as well. You've now all got COVID.
It's funny, because when they started bringing this out, there was a naval ship that was isolated for 6 months before it even released, and they all had it. So how the fuck did that happen? Because it is quantum. You start believing it, and all of a sudden you're sick. But anyway, going back to the sun and the moon, it's the solar system, because it takes souls to run that system. Now, there's a lot of things in Masonic terms about Solomon, right? And you'll come into that as you go through the degrees and stuff. Is it Solomon or is it Solar Man? It's all kind of closely hidden. If you look at the moon, you'll see that obviously it's covered in craters, and they tell you that it was hit by rocks, and it was, we never seem to see it. We never see anything just dust by or anything on the news about an explosion. We don't see any of that, but they say it's all from craters. But the craters are all different sizes, but they're all about the same depth. Now, the only time you ever get that is through an anode getting pitted in an electrical system. When you create a circuit. So we're essentially, to the best of my knowledge, we're essentially ghosts piloting a bit of a meat suit made out of energy, and we're part of an electrical system that keeps us locked into this frequency that makes everything feel solid, and it's all basically illusion.
It's very sobering. I mean, in a way, if you could get your head around that, you wouldn't get depressed again, because you'd know that you wasn't.
Doesn't matter, does it?
You wasn't somebody sat in a fucking bed sit. That everything around you was connected to something bigger, and perhaps that's the draw of religion, is to know that you're connected to something bigger, and that there is. That you're connected to infinity.
It is. That's the problem solution again, isn't it?
Yeah. But it is actually mind blowing. I'm speechless, Ian. You've blown my mind with it. But the Star Wars stuff as well.
Just Star Wars is weird enough, right? Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
look at the transhumanism in it as well. You know, you've got cyborgs, you got it's the Ray Kurzweil wet dream in it, basically.
Yeah, I think George Lucas was an insider, or the studios just loaded the fucking films with.
I think you almost have to be an insider, or maybe you came up with a movie. I mean, I don't know how these things work, but maybe you came up with a movie idea, and they said that's great. You got to put all this shit in it, and then we'll launch it.
Yeah.
Maybe they made him change some terms, but somebody knew something that was real that put it in there, and that's just Star Wars. Every movie has a little bit of something in it.
I mean, one of the most alarming films, what could have been made last week, was They Live.
Yeah.
1988, I think. What's that?
Yeah.
30 odd years ago. And in the tent cities in America, and the bloke on the television who just kind of tells it as it is, that that it's all manipulated and they're all fear-based. Yeah, I can't remember the film verbatim.
Yeah,
but that's just an.
I think we're also V for Vendetta right now is seeming pretty prophetic as well.
Absolutely. And do you remember V? Do you remember the series, Ian, in the early 80s called V?
Yeah, with the lizards.
All these men came, all these
the
aliens came to Earth, and they were actually lizards that fed off humans.
Yeah, imagine that.
You as a child, you watched that. I think this is fucking brilliant. It's on after news at 10. What I mean? And you don't think anything more than wild entertainment. Dave Mundy's just made a comment. I once came across an occult ceremony, Jimmy. I'll tell you about it sometime. It's 100% true. It does. The occult does fascinate me. I don't know what it is about me. Whether I've always had a draw towards Satanism. I've never actually done anything even Ouija boards. I think my black magic have been like vitriol spat from my mouth, and but I've always had a fascination with black magic and things like that from being a kid. And,
I think it's because it's hidden, isn't it? Anything that's hidden as a kid, if you tell a kid don't go in there, they're going to be curious. And the thing about black magic, it isn't necessarily black. Doesn't necessarily mean evil. It really kind of means you're invoking Saturn to produce that result. It doesn't mean you're hurting somebody necessarily. It might be against the grain of a lot of religions, but I mean, religion is just almost like to keep you grounded, keep you in the circle. I mean, church derives from circa or circle, so they're keeping you in the loop. Then they don't want you thinking about this stuff for yourself. No.
Jordan Maxwell said Cersei was some kind of succubus that drained the energy out of people. Are you familiar with that, or is that a different etymology? Well, and then one question coming for you, Ian. Somebody called Only Me. Question. So if none of this is real, then why does it matter what is happening? If we are not really here, then what happens when you die? Are you saying that we are better off dead?
I'm not saying that at all. See, now what happens when we die? That is always an educated guess, isn't it? I mean, so if you believe the church, you pass on to another realm, and everyone's happy and everything else. What it seems like you might happen is, or what might happen to you is that your soul and your spirit get separated. Your soul retains on the earth as the memories involved with the reality, and your spirit will eventually it'll get drawn towards a light, which was is largely documented. Now, I was told by a guy in the CIA, don't go to the first light because it's the moon, right? And you'll be back here before you fucking know it. So
was this in real life? A CIA fella told you?
Yeah. This happened. Yeah.
Wow.
So this was a guy in secret intelligence said, don't go to the first one because it's just basically a recycle plant to get you back here to do the work that the higher powers don't want to do.
I'm quite alarmed
So
now, Ian. I'm thinking that you've been sent here as a shill to, and you're actually working for the CIA via
no,
the northwest of England.
no, not at all. Just I've got to put my kids to bed soon. That's how much CIA I am. No, this
Yeah,
was just, it was somebody I ran into, and we got into this discussion. And I always kind of choose my audience well. I'll start with a couple of little testers, and if they start, coming up with the info, then I'll start like deep digging. So this is just what you came up with. Now, if you think about the moon, and you think about the original name for the moon, it was sin, right? So when you hear things like sin will keep you on the planet, it's not talking about you fornicated out of marriage and you're going to be doomed to be. It's talking about the physical body. It'll keep you on the planet, meaning you go there and you come right back. But if you resist that, there'll be a bunch of scary shit on the outside, demons or whatever. It's all bullshit. You go through it, you can actually get back to the source of where we came from, which is a part of basically the great intelligence. And this is again in that CIA file gateway process. It talks about, it doesn't say God, it says the absolute, which is basically a culmination of all the consciousness that has collected information, and we become part of that. Basically, is what it says.
The Grand Architect.
I suppose so, for want of a better word, yeah. But it's just another name. Essentially, it's all it is, isn't it? So it's the source of all knowledge and energy.
Do you think a lot of the CIA are well versed in the occult?
They'd have to be.
Is that the top brass? Obviously, that the foot soldiers wouldn't be.
Yeah, it wouldn't be your guy, bringing crack back from Mexico. It wouldn't be that guy, but it would be the directors, I would imagine.
Fascinating. Were you saying you have to get off now, Ian, and put the kids to bed?
I mean, I don't have to. I'm just saying. I was just trying to dispel any fears that I might be on the inside. I'm just a regular dad. I got to do that in a bit, but I'm not on a time crunch. If there's anything else.
No, I mean, no, but I'm quite worried that your children don't actually exist, and they might be like AI dolls to.
They might be planted. I'd have no idea anyway. If it's all illusion. I don't know.
I see. My paranoia is like. My man's a pinball machine now. I think you've come back from Florida to kind of have me whacked off. Whacked off.
That's not that. No.
Yeah.
I think that the confusion comes from when if it's all illusion and it doesn't matter. That's not necessarily the case. What you do still matters, and what you ascribe meaning to matters. It's up to us to ascribe meaning to what we do in life. It's not, if you get one of the best examples is like a computer game or a video game. If everything's scalar, we can only create what we're given to create with, right? So we create that as a dialed down version. Now you could turn a game on and do nothing with it. You could stare at the loading screen forever if you wanted to, or you could get involved with it and you can play with it and you can try to build things within that game and complete the little missions that are in it, and all of a sudden it becomes meaningful to you, and that's very similar to life.
It's what you put into it, really, isn't it?
It is. You get out what you put in.
Chris Ruffley says, "You don't understand. Aliens put us on this planet a very long time ago. Now they watch and keep watching us, and the moon is there. Look out." I don't think the aliens put us on this planet. I think they genetically engineered us.
We've been altered. We've definitely been altered. Yeah, I mean, he has a good point. All we're talking about at this point is from source to where we are here, without cutting out the middlemen. So I'm not saying there's no aliens or anything like that. And I do understand what he's saying. I'm well versed in Sumerian texts and Anunnaki theory and everything else, but what he's saying is that we were created for this. Now, there's a lot of scripture out there, a lot of tablets and things that say, yeah, something landed and got involved with a basic hominid species and created a being from just a random creature. Now, when you look at those Sumerian tablets where they're all carrying these pine cones around and they've got wristwatches on and bags, remember Ghostbusters, right?
Yeah.
And they'd throw the little trap out and energy would come out of it and it'd trap the ghost, right? that's essentially what they're doing. They're taking souls in a little bag and putting them in the heads, in the pineal gland of the being, and that's what created that intelligence for us to be self-sufficient, where they didn't need to necessarily monitor us as much as they wanted to. Like, so if you trained a dog, you'd have to watch that dog all the time to make sure it did that job, and it'd be really, it'd be tedious. But if you give that dog true intelligence, it could think for itself on its feet. You could let it go for a little bit and then check in with it every once in a while.
Yeah,
and that's kind of where we're at. I think we are essentially the missing link that they've told us to look for.
Yeah.
So he actually makes a very good point. What I'm getting at is beyond that, beyond the aliens and everything else, all is essentially energy and consciousness. So it doesn't matter where you are on the totem pole. There's loads of things that came before us. We're just the most recent thing to stay here. So that's basically, he has a good point. It's just a few steps down.
It's fascinating. And we've got one question. I think we're going to wrap up shortly. We don't want to stay our welcome. Well, I don't anyway. But only me. A lot of what you speak about is where the mind goes when you have a psychotic episode. Could psychosis be what our true reality is?
It can give you a glimpse into something that most people don't see, because it's, you're tripping out of your normal reality. So psychosis, schizophrenia, hallucinations are all kind of things that are just beyond the veil, and it just takes that right kind of stimulus to put you out there. And that's how you create these guys that are willing to go in a school and shoot it up, where you kind of fracture the consciousness through trauma and through repetition, and you basically convince them that, remember that film, was it Dustin Hoffman, was it Marathon Man or something like that? And they kept beating him up, telling there was 3 lights and there was only 2 or something like that. That's what they do to you until they ground you in until you agree with them, and then they can basically give you a signal and you'll go wild and do whatever it is they wanted you to do. So psychotic episodes definitely are part of a damaged consciousness or a fracture in your own mind, and it does reveal things that you wouldn't normally be privy to. Yeah, absolutely.
King Charles the Third. What if every organism on this planet is derived from an alien supercell, and Earth is one of many galactic experiments?
Well, it's an interesting question. I mean, if you were, what we're told about a god is that he was always here, or she was always here, or it was always here, and always will be, you'd probably get pretty bored. And so why wouldn't you experiment with it? I think there's probably, from what I was told, and I can't remember who this was, it might have been somebody from Ancient Aliens that I talked to a lot of these guys, but basically it was something like there's 40 planets right now that are in some kind of open rebellion against this exact same thing we're dealing with here, where people are being told what to do, what to say, how to act, and it's by the same controllers that do it all. So obviously I've never been, I can't verify it, it's just what I heard, but I think for sure that there's commonalities in a lot of organisms that
Ian's quite well connected in the world of the occult's the wrong term. Alternative media. You'll have to get some of your kind of contacts on when we get more established, Ian, and I stop wearing a vest. We'll have to get some of your kind of contacts on, but I think we should call time there. Good evening,
sure.
Totty Maud. Thank you everybody for stopping by, and this is the early embryonic stages of this, and we'll see where it goes. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ian, and
thank you. Good talk.
We'll see you all soon, and bid you all good night, and God bless. God, may your God go with you, as Dave Allen once said.
Yes, sir. Great comedian.
That's it.